At my brother's housewarming party, in the middle of the living room I had personally designed and built, he draped his arm over his wife's shoulder and told a crowd of their friends, "The secret to a beautiful home isn't money, it's vision." Then he looked right at me, holding a tray of appetizers, and added with a wink, "And having a sister who's willing to get her hands dirty for free." Everyone laughed. His wife, Chloe, raised her champagne flute in a toast to him. An hour later, I slipped out, but not before logging into the smart home system I had installed and changing the master password to a 32-character string of gibberish I would never remember. The next morning, his call came. I let it go to voicemail. Then Chloe's. Then their frantic texts started flooding in. Their dream house, the monument to their success, had become a prison of their own incompetence. The heating was locked on high, the security system was offline, and the automated blinds were stuck halfway down, plunging their perfect life into a perpetual stuffy twilight. That party was supposed to be a celebration. For me, it was supposed to be a finish line. For 9 months, I had poured every spare ounce of my life into that house. My brother, Leo, and his wife, Chloe, had bought a dilapidated mid-century fixer-upper with what they called great bones and even better potential. What that really meant was that it was a gut job they couldn't afford to renovate professionally, and they knew I was the only person who would do it for the cost of materials and takeout dinners. I'm a structural engineer. By day, I design commercial buildings, dealing with load-bearing walls, HVAC systems, and complex electrical grids. By night, and for the last 9 months, every single weekend, I had become Leo's personal contractor, carpenter, electrician, and interior designer. The arrangement started innocently enough. "Maya, could you just take a look at the plans? Tell us if we're crazy for wanting to take out this wall." That look turned into me redrawing the entire ground floor layout for better flow. Then it was, "We found this reclaimed wood for the library shelves, but the quote to install them is insane. You were always so good at woodworking in Dad's shop, remember?" Soon, I was spending my Saturdays covered in sawdust, meticulously crafting floor-to-ceiling bookshelves that I knew Chloe would only fill with color-coordinated thrift store hardbacks she'd never read. I wired the entire house for a state-of-the-art smart system, a project so complex that I had to write custom code to sync the vintage light fixtures Chloe insisted on with a modern, energy-efficient network. I tiled their master bathroom, laid the hardwood floors in the great room, and even designed and welded the custom steel railings for the floating staircase myself. They weren't just my brother and sister-in-law. They were my only close family. Our parents had passed away a few years prior, and in that vacuum of grief, Leo had stepped into the role of the patriarch. He was the golden child, the charismatic financial advisor who always had a good story and an easy smile. I was the quiet one, the capable one, the one who fixed things. It was a dynamic that had been set in stone since childhood. He got the applause. I got the quiet satisfaction of a job well done. I told myself it was enough. I told myself that helping them build their dream home was my way of keeping our family connected, of building something tangible in the wake of all we'd lost. But as the months wore on, the dynamic began to feel less like family helping family and more like exploitation. They'd pop in on a Saturday afternoon, dressed for brunch, while I was covered in drywall dust and paint. "Oh, wow, it's looking so amazing, May," Chloe would say. carefully navigating around my tools to place a vase of flowers on a freshly painted mantelpiece for an Instagram story. # renovation journey, #dream house. She'd never tag me. Leo would stand back, hands on his hips, and offer creative direction. You know, I was thinking that wall might look better in a slightly warmer shade of gray. He'd muse, as if he were a client, and I were the hired help. They never once offered to pick up a paintbrush. They never once asked if I was tired. My contribution wasn't seen as a monumental gift of time, skill, and labor. It was just what Maya does. It was expected, an unspoken part of my role in the family. The house became their identity, a testament to their taste and success, and I was just the invisible scaffolding holding it all up. The closer we got to finishing, the more I felt like a ghost in the house I was building. The simmering resentment I'd been swallowing for months finally boiled over the week before the party. They had ordered a massive 1,000-pound marble countertop for the kitchen island. The delivery company's policy was curbside drop-off only. Leo called me in a panic. "Maya, I don't know what to do. Chloe is freaking out. Can you handle it?" He had a client dinner he couldn't miss. So I left work early, rented a dolly and a small crane, and with the help of 2 guys I paid cash out of my own pocket, spent 4 grueling hours maneuvering this polished slab of rock into their kitchen without a single scratch. I got it set perfectly in place, leveled and sealed it, and cleaned up the mess. I sent Leo a text at 10 p.m. "The counter is in." His reply came 2 hours later. "You're a lifesaver. Chloe loves it. Looks amazing in her pics." Not "thank you." Not "how did you manage that?" Not "I owe you." Just an affirmation that it now served its purpose as a prop in their curated life. I stood in my own apartment that night, my back aching and my hands raw, and realized I wasn't building their dream. I was enabling their delusion. A delusion that they were effortlessly successful, that beautiful things just fell into their laps, that their vision alone was enough to manifest reality. I was the reality, and they were making damn sure I stayed behind the curtain. I knew then that the housewarming party wouldn't be a celebration of a shared effort. It would be the unveiling of their masterpiece, and I needed to be prepared for my name to be left off the plaque. The night of the party was even worse than I'd imagined. The house was gleaming. Every surface I had sanded, painted, and polished was reflecting the warm glow of the designer lights I had painstakingly installed. The air buzzed with the conversations of Leo's colleagues from his investment firm and Chloe's friends from her yoga studio and book club. They all looked so sleek, so clean. I felt out of place, even though I knew the structural integrity of the floorboards beneath their expensive shoes better than anyone. I had put on a nice dress, but I still had a faint stain of wood varnish under one of my fingernails that I couldn't scrub out. It felt like a secret signature. Leo was in his element, playing the proud homeowner. He led tours, pointing out features with a proprietary air. "We decided to go with a floating staircase to really open up the space," he'd say, gesturing to the structure I had welded in my garage over 3 weekends. "And the library was my passion project. I wanted a real old-world feel, you know?" he'd say, running his hand over the custom shelving I had built to his vague 1-sentence specification of like something out of a British castle. Chloe would follow. adding little anecdotes about their process. Leo and I spent weeks debating the exact shade of blue for the kitchen cabinets. She'd laugh, as if their debate, and not my labor of spraying, sanding, and respraying them 3 times was the actual work. I watched it all with a strange sense of detachment, like watching a movie where I knew the ending. The final scene came when Leo's boss, a silver-haired man named Mr. Davenport, cornered him by the fireplace I had refaced with hand-cut slate. "Leo, this place is magnificent. Truly, you have a designer's eye," Davenport said, swirling his scotch. Leo beamed, the kind of proud, effortless smile that had always worked on our parents. "Thank you, sir. The secret to a beautiful home isn't money. It's vision." He paused for effect, letting the compliment land. Then his eyes found me across the room. I was refilling a bowl of olives, playing the part of the helpful sister. He gestured towards me with his glass. "And having a sister who's willing to get her hands dirty for free." A few people chuckled. Chloe smiled and squeezed his arm. It wasn't meant to be overtly cruel. To them, it was just a little joke, a casual acknowledgement of my role. But to me, in that moment, it was the sound of a gavel coming down. It was the final verdict. I wasn't a partner. I wasn't even a cherished contributor. I was a resource, a free, convenient, and publicly unacknowledged utility. The 9 months of exhaustion, the sacrificed weekends, the aching muscles, the mental load of 1,000 tiny decisions, it was all reduced to a punchline. In their story, my monumental effort was just a quirky little footnote. I felt the heat rise in my face, but I smiled. A tight, brittle smile that didn't reach my eyes. I set down the bowl of olives, walked over to Leo, and gave him a hug. "Congratulations, brother. You deserve it," I said, my voice eerily calm. "I've got an early morning, so I'm going to head out." He clapped me on the back. "Thanks for everything, May. We'll talk tomorrow." Oh, we will, I thought. We most certainly will. My reaction wasn't a storm. It was a quiet, precise demolition. As I walked to the front door, past the guests who were admiring the hand-stenciled pattern I had painted in the entryway, I pulled out my phone. The smart home was controlled by an app, a centralized hub that I had built from scratch, because the off-the-shelf options weren't compatible with the mix of old and new tech in the house. The entire system was tied to a master account, an account only I had the credentials for. I had set up simpler, user-friendly profiles for Leo and Chloe, but the core administrative control was mine. It had seemed like a practical measure at the time. If anything went wrong, I could troubleshoot it remotely. Now it felt like fate. I didn't make a scene. I didn't yell or cry. I simply walked out to my car, parked a block away, and sat in the quiet dock. My hands were shaking, not with rage, but with a terrifying sense of clarity. It felt like a fever had broken. The years of telling myself that my role, as the capable one, was a form of love, that my silent service was a noble sacrifice, all of it evaporated in the heat of that one casual, dismissive joke. They hadn't just taken credit for my work. They had fundamentally misunderstood its value. And in doing so, they had misunderstood my value as a person. My labor wasn't a gift of love to them. It was just free. I opened the admin app on my phone. The dashboard glowed in the dark car, showing me the status of the entire house. Thermostat at a perfect 72 degrees. Security system armed for party mode. All lights functioning. It was a perfect self-regulating ecosystem I had built. My digital ghost in their machine. I navigated to the user settings. I saw their profiles, Leo and Chloe. With 2 taps, I deleted them. Then I went to the master account settings. The password was a phrase I had chosen months ago. Something sentimental from our childhood. I deleted it. In its place, I let my phone's password generator create a new one. Keesvandar PXN ZR9 net Q4J Wasi GVEAB and 86SL3T. I didn't copy it. I didn't save it. I just looked at it for a second, a meaningless string of characters, and hit confirm. The app logged me out. I tried to log back in. Access denied. It was done. I hadn't broken a single thing. I hadn't smashed a window or keyed a car. I had simply resigned. I had withdrawn my invisible, unpaid, unappreciated labor. The house was still standing, as beautiful as ever. But its nervous system was now a black box. The heat would stay at whatever temperature it was last set to. The lights would be controllable only by their physical switches, if they were on a simple circuit. The complex, programmed lighting scenes were gone. The security system would be inert. The automated blinds locked in place. All the little luxuries and conveniences that made the house a smart home were gone. They were left with a beautiful, expensive, and profoundly stupid house. And I was the only person on Earth who knew how to fix it. I put my phone in the glove compartment, started the car, and drove home. I didn't listen to music. I just listened to the silence. A silence that for the first time in months wasn't filled with a mental to-do list for someone else's life. It was just my own. This wasn't the first time Leo had claimed my work as his own. It was just the most blatant. The pattern was woven into the very fabric of our childhood. As I drove, the memories I had long suppressed came flooding back. Not as a trickle, but as a tidal wave. It was like my brain was finally allowing me to see the full tapestry of my own exploitation. I remembered the 7th grade science fair. Our project was on bridge engineering. I spent weeks in the garage, meticulously building scale models of different bridge types out of popsicle sticks and wood glue, testing their load-bearing capacity with my dad's weights. I wrote a 10-page report on the physics behind truss versus suspension designs. Leo, who was a grade ahead, was supposed to be my partner. His contribution was designing the poster board with colorful markers the night before it was due. When we won first place, he grabbed the blue ribbon, hoisted it in the air, and told the judges, "I've always wanted to be an architect." The local paper took a photo of him holding the ribbon, with me standing slightly behind him, out of focus. My parents framed that newspaper clipping. It's still on the mantelpiece at their old house. Then there was high school. Leo struggled with English. I was a voracious reader. His final paper for his American literature class was on The Great Gatsby. He was on the verge of failing. I sat with him for an entire weekend, outlining the themes of the American dream, the hollowness of the upper class, the symbolism of the green light. I practically dictated the entire essay to him. He got an A+. The teacher wrote a note on it. "Leo, this is insightful and beautifully written. You have a real gift for literary analysis." He never told her I'd helped. He let her and our parents believe he'd had a sudden intellectual breakthrough. He was the brilliant one who had just needed to apply himself. I was just the studious little sister. Even the summer after my first year of college, when I came home with new skills in drafting and design from my engineering program, he found a way to leverage them. Our parents wanted a new deck in the backyard. Leo volunteered to design and manage the project. He presented them with a set of beautiful, professional-looking blueprints. They were my blueprints. I had drawn them as a personal project, practicing my new skills. He had found them on my desk, photocopied them, and presented them as his own. When the deck was finished, by a professional crew this time, paid for by our parents, everyone at the first family barbecue on it toasted to Leo's deck. He just smiled and accepted the praise. I remember standing there, hamburger in hand, feeling a familiar, dull ache. It was the feeling of being erased. Each time, I told myself it didn't matter. It was for the family. He needed the confidence boost. I didn't need the credit. But standing there, erased from the story of my own work, time and time again, I realized I'd been lying to myself. It did matter. It mattered more than anything. The house wasn't the first time. It was just the last straw. It was the moment I realized that Leo didn't just take credit for my work. He took credit for my identity. He absorbed my competence into his persona, leaving me with nothing but the quiet, thankless role of the helper. And I had let him. For decades. The first text arrived at 7:15 a.m. the next morning. It was from Chloe. "Hey, is something wrong with the heat? It's like a sauna in here and the thermostat isn't responding." I ignored it. 10 minutes later, a text from Leo. "Maya, call me. The security system is offline." I watched the screen, my heart pounding a steady rhythmic beat. It wasn't anxiety. It was control. At 8:00 a.m., my phone rang. It was Leo. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, Chloe called. I silenced my phone and made myself a coffee. The barrage of texts began. "The blinds are stuck. The Wi-Fi isn't connecting to the main hub. Did you change a password or something? This isn't funny, Maya." Around noon, they showed up at my apartment. I knew they would. I watched them through my peephole as they buzzed my unit, their faces tight with a mixture of confusion and irritation. I didn't answer. They buzzed again, longer this time. Then, Leo started banging on the door. "Maya, I know you're in there. Open the door." His voice was no longer the charming, easygoing tone of the golden child. It was the sharp, demanding bark of a man whose perfect world was malfunctioning. I sat on my couch, sipping my coffee, and didn't move. This wasn't a conversation that could be had through a door. It couldn't be had at all until they understood the price of admission was something they had never been willing to pay. Respect. They finally left after about 10 minutes, and I received one last text from Leo. "I don't know what game you're playing, but you're going to fix this. Now." There was no question mark. It was a command. That evening, my parents' old friend, a woman who acted as a sort of surrogate aunt to us, called me. "Maya, dear, Leo called me. He said you two had a little tiff and that you're upset about the party. He's very worried. He says you've locked him out of his own house systems and he's just so confused about why." I knew this tactic. It was triangulation. He couldn't control me directly, so he was mobilizing the family network, painting me as the unstable, irrational little sister having a tantrum. "Aunt Carol," I said, my voice perfectly level. "Did he tell you that I spent 9 months of my life building that house for free? Did he tell you about the night I spent single-handedly installing a 1,000-pound marble countertop? Did he tell you that at his party, in front of all his important friends, he introduced me as the free labor?" There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Well, no," she stammered. "He just said you were sensitive." "I'm not sensitive," I replied. "I'm done. The house is his vision. He can figure out how to run it." I ended the call politely but firmly. The lines were being drawn. They thought this was a negotiation. They thought I wanted an apology, so I would come back and fix their problems. They didn't understand. This was a secession. I was declaring my independence. Later that night, Leo tried a different approach. A long, rambling voicemail. His voice was softer now, pleading. "May, look, if I said something that upset you at the party, I'm sorry. It was a joke. You know I appreciate everything you did. But this is crazy. We can't live like this. The house is a mess. Just tell me the password. We can talk this through. Don't do this to us. Don't do this to family." It was a masterclass in manipulation. The non-apology, the gaslighting, the appeal to family. But the magic was gone. I no longer saw him as my charming older brother. I saw a man who had built his entire identity on a foundation of my work. And the foundation was cracking. And I wasn't going to patch it for him. Not this time. The fallout was slow. Then, all at once. For the first week, Leo and Chloe tried to solve the problem themselves. I can only imagine the farce that unfolded. Leo, who could barely change a light bulb, trying to decipher the custom wiring diagrams I had left, intentionally mislabeled. Chloe, calling the customer support line for the smart home components, only to be told that the system was a custom build, and they couldn't help her. A week later, I heard through Aunt Carol that they had called in a professional IT consultant. He spent 2 days at the house and quoted them $5,000 just to try and bypass my encrypted master controls, with no guarantee of success. The alternative was to rip out the entire system, all the wiring, all the hubs, all the controls, and start from scratch. That would cost tens of thousands, and would mean tearing open the walls I had so carefully finished. Their perfect, effortless dream home was suddenly a very expensive, very public nightmare. Their friends from the party started asking questions. "Is your heating still broken? I heard you had some electrical issues." The narrative of Leo's brilliant vision was being replaced by the reality of his incompetence. The house, which was meant to be a symbol of his arrival into a certain social stratum, was now a source of deep embarrassment. About 2 weeks after the party, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I cautiously answered. "Is this Maya?" a man's voice asked. "My name is Arthur Davenport. I'm Leo's boss. We met briefly at the housewarming." My blood ran cold. "Yes?" I said. "Listen," he said, his voice direct but not unkind. "Leo's a good man and a great advisor, but he's been distracted and, frankly, a mess these last couple of weeks. He told me the whole story, about the house, about your contribution, about what he said at the party. He's an idiot, A complete and utter idiot. I was stunned into silence. He also told me, Mr. Davenport continued, that you're a brilliant engineer who basically built that place from the studs up. I looked you up. Your professional portfolio is impressive. I don't know what's going on between you two, and it's none of my business. But I'm calling for 2 reasons. First, whatever he's paying you, I'll double it if you come fix the house, because this is affecting his work. Second, and more importantly, my wife and I are looking to build a guest house on our property. After seeing your work, and I mean your work, I'd like to hire you to design and manage the project. This time, as a paid professional with a proper contract. I sat there, holding the phone, and I started to laugh. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was a laugh of pure, unadulterated irony. The validation I had craved from my family for my entire life, the recognition for my skills and my work, had just been handed to me by a stranger who Leo had been trying to impress by taking credit for my work. In his attempt to erase me, he had inadvertently become my best reference. Mr. Davenport, I said, my voice clear and steady for the first time in what felt like forever. Thank you for the offer. I'm not for hire to fix my brother's house. That's his project. But I would be very interested in discussing the guest house. I'll send you the link to my new business website. I hung up the phone. Phoenix Engineering and Design. I had registered the domain name the day after the party. I spent the next hour building a simple, elegant website, uploading photos of my past projects, including the professional-grade photos I had taken of every stage of Leo and Chloe's house. For the first time, I was authoring my own story, with my name right on the cover. The lesson in all of this wasn't about revenge. I didn't revel in Leo and Chloe's misery. In fact, what I felt was a profound and aching sadness. A sadness for the relationship I thought we had, and the realization that it was built on a lie I had helped perpetuate. The true lesson was about value. For my entire life, I had allowed my value to be dictated by others. I believed that being useful to my family was the same as being loved by them. I thought that by making myself indispensable, I was making myself precious. But I had it all backward. To them, my utility didn't make me precious. It made me a resource, as common and expected as running water. The moment I turned off the tap, they didn't reflect on how much they had valued the water. They were just angry about the thirst. My skills, my time, my energy. I had treated them like a public utility for my family to use at will. The house was just the final, massive project that made it impossible to ignore. Building that house taught me more about my own strength than I ever imagined. But walking away from it taught me about my own worth. Worth isn't about what you can do for other people. It's about what you will no longer do to yourself. I would no longer make myself small to fit into the supporting role they had cast for me. I would no longer work for the currency of their approval, a currency they devalued with every casual act of erasure. The real work wasn't building the house. It was dismantling the false belief that I owed them my talent. The real renovation wasn't on Leo and Chloe's property. It was on my own soul. It was messy, and it meant tearing things down to the studs. But what I was building in its place was something that was finally, truly, my own. A few months have passed. I did take the job with Mr. Davenport. We signed a contract that was ironclad. with clear deliverables, a payment schedule, and a clause that explicitly stated all design credit belonged to my firm. The work is challenging and rewarding. For the first time, I come home from a long day of problem-solving, feeling energized, not drained. I'm not just building a structure, I'm building my reputation, my business, my future. The silence from Leo and Chloe has been deafening. I heard through the grapevine that they eventually paid an exorbitant amount of money to have the entire smart home system ripped out and replaced with a simpler, dumber version. The house is functional now, but the magic is gone. It's just a collection of nice things, a hollow shell that reminds them of their public failure. Aunt Carol told me that Chloe rarely has people over anymore. The house, once her greatest source of pride, has become a monument to her husband's deception and her own complicity. Last week I received an email. It was from Leo. The subject line just said, "I'm sorry." The body of the email was long and rambling. It was full of excuses. The pressure at work, the desire to look successful, the fact that he'd always been a bit lost since our parents died. He said he always admired me, was jealous of my talent, and that taking credit for it was his broken way of trying to feel some of that competence himself. He said he was wrong, that he was ashamed, and that he missed his sister. It was the apology I had waited my whole life to hear, and as I read it, I felt almost nothing. The words were right, but they were months too late. They were a bandage offered long after the wound had already scarred over. An apology doesn't erase the history. It doesn't rebuild the trust that was systematically demolished over decades. I thought about what he wanted. He wanted absolution. He wanted the comfortable dynamic back. He wanted me to reply, to say, "I forgive you." To come over for dinner and pretend the last 30 years hadn't happened. He wanted me to fix this final broken thing, our relationship. But I am not a fixer anymore. I am a builder, and I am busy building my own life. I typed out a reply, short and honest. "Thank you for your email. I'm glad you're getting help. I wish you the best." I didn't say I forgave him. I didn't say I hated him. I just said I wished him the best from a distance. I am the architect of my own life now, and the blueprints don't include a supporting role in someone else's story. My hands are still dirty most days, covered in sawdust or grease or paint. But now, it's for my projects, my clients, my vision. And at the end of the day, the credit is all mine. I've earned it.